Rejection doesn't get much easier. This is something.
Is this specifically with dating? Is that what the reference was?
Yeah, this was the reference. This is something that I wanted to talk about because it just keeps coming up as a topic of interest between people that I talk to, along with, I think, just our podcast in general. I mean, we spent a good 20-30 minutes last podcast episode talking about dating and the do's and don'ts according to you.
My years of wisdom.
Yeah, so many years. Back in the Civil War and all that, right? So rejection doesn't get much easier. This is like, I'm someone who got rejected a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And people say that, oh, it just gets easier. Like every time you hear no, or you hear you're the perfect guy, but you're just a better friend or something like that. People think it gets easier to just hear it all the time. You know, if you get praised for the same thing, like, oh, he's the one who created the computer, and then you just hear that for years and years on end, it's going to eventually get old. You're going to be like, yeah, I'm the one who built the computer, great, whatever. It's the same thing with rejection, I think.
Yeah.
What's your take on it? And how do you deal with it?
It comes down to both the same answer. It comes down to your internal monologue, which we talked about this in episode 212, I think.
Putting up numbers, bro. Haven't edited yet.
yeah. 212 is not live yet. It comes down to, we talked about in that episode, small wins, like paying attention to your wins, right? Paying attention to the monologue. So it's using the context of dating. You know, you come up to a girl and she rejects you or whatever. Try to find some small win in that, right? Did she smile at you? Whatever. And when you go into those situations, if you go into that and you're thinking about all the times that you've been rejected before, you're going to get rejected, right? You're not going to have any confidence. But if you go into that situation and you're thinking about all the times that you've won, that you picked up the girl's number, you went on a date with her, whatever, you're going to have a lot more confidence.
But then what if the end result is the same? You're rejected.
You're rejected. That's fine. You're going to have that. You have to control the internal monologue and pay attention to your wins. If you haven't got a girl's number before, find something. It could literally be fucking anything in your life that was a positive. That one time I looked in the mirror and I thought my shirt looked great. Whatever. Start wherever you have to be, and then just start to scale up from there, man. It's just the same thing as business and sales. If you pay attention all the times you got rejected on a sales call, and you go into a sales call thinking about that, I tell you, you're not going to sell anybody, right? But if you think about all the times that you've sold people, you're going to have, it's kind of like this sixth sense, dude. You're going to have this confidence that you can't really describe. You know, you can't, there's not an instruction manual for it. Mm-hmm. So you just have to ignore all the times that you've been rejected. And I think another important aspect is just try to find maybe other people who have talked about it, who you think are successful. I mean, I'm thinking more along the lines of business. You know, let's say you're, struggling to find success. Well, find somebody you look up to. It might be Elon, whatever, and find all the times that they failed. Mm-hmm. If you're trying to pick up girls, try to find somebody who you think is really successful. You think is a pickup artist or whatever. There's YouTube channels for that. Find that person and try to find where they've talked about failure. And realize that the person that you want to emulate, how many women have you gone up to? 20? Well, they've probably gone up to 2,000, right? Mm-hmm. They didn't find their success in the first 20. This could be sales calls, this could be dating, this could be business, all of this stuff. You got to pay attention to the times that you've won, and you got to look at other people and realize that the people that you think are so successful, they've actually probably failed way more than you. That's the only difference. The people who you think, that's a good one. The people who you think are so successful, the only difference is that they have failed way more than the times that you have tried.
I said this last podcast. I'm gonna say it again. I'm framing this. That's I think a really good way to look at it. I mean, the analogy I should say that gets me with this is, if I keep studying for an exam and I understand one concept, I keep understanding it, and then I go to the test, I get a 30. And then I go into the next test and I get a 30. I go to the next test, I get a 40. Like, I'm gonna keep. Like, I can celebrate my little wins saying, oh, yeah, I was able to understand that a squared plus b squared is c squared. But I keep getting integrals and derivatives wrong. What am I going to do? So changing your approach and looking at the nitty gritty, I think, is a really good way to kind of tackle that.
I definitely think with sales and women, sales and dating, this could be, you're a woman trying to date, whatever. They are so alike. Like a lot of it comes down to confidence. A lot of it just comes down to paying attention to their previous shit. A good friend of mine who now has a successful business, he once came to me for this advice. He was doing sales calls. Trying to over summarize here. He was doing sales calls and just sucked, right? He did like first 15 of them, didn't sell anybody, right? And he needed to have I think it was like a 20% close rate for this particular business model to be successful. And the guy who we both learned sales from had done like 1,500 sales calls, right? Before he made this training or whatnot. So he comes to me and he's like, oh man, I'm really struggling with my sales. I suck at it or whatever. And I'm like, dude, you've done 15. Okay. Go do 100 of them. Okay. And then tell me, that you actually have a problem, because more than likely you just haven't tried enough. Mm-hmm. So you have to pay attention to the wins, go into it with some confidence, and yeah, you'll eventually find some success.